Hi, it's Dan with EUJuicers.com, coming to you as always from our offices here in the heart of Europe. And in this video, I'm going to be showing the new Sana 727 Supreme horizontal juicer. Now, for those of you who don't know this Sana brand, we have a lot of viewers in North America. It is a European brand. It's made in South Korea, the same place where the other premium brands like Omega, Hurom, Angel are made. And the reason I mention that is because this model actually, from what I hear, will be coming to North America in the latter part of 2020. We're filming this right at the beginning of the year of 2020. This just arrived actually yesterday to our offices, and I've been playing around with it for a while. And what I want to do is just talk about what makes this different. This is, from Sana's perspective, the ultimate juicer. I want to see if that's true. Basically, they've thrown every feature, looked at different juicers, found the best features from different ones, combined it all into this unit. The goal here is to kind of combine like the high speed of a centrifugal juicer without the oxidation, the good yield of a vertical juicer, the ease of use, ease of cleaning of a horizontal juicer, all in one package. So what I'll be doing in this video, I'm going to talk about what features they've added, what makes this juicer different, and then I'm going to actually juice a bunch of things, make about 7 juices, I think. I want to try the homogenizing screen as well. That would be nut butter, sorbet, and maybe even pull out the oil extractor if I've got one around here. Try that out as well. Take a look at cleaning as well. And as always, I'll have a timeline pinned to the first comment, so if you want to jump somewhere, just do that right below. So what I'd like to do first is look at the features. They call this the Supreme, the Ultimate. I don't have final pricing yet, but from what I understand, it's going to be at the high end of the market up there, for example, with the Kuvings Evolution, the high end of the single auger juicers, still probably half the price of an Angel. And you know, any juicer, it starts with the motor. Juicer's simple. It's a motor turning an auger that's pressing produce against a screen and squeezing it out. That's the concept behind it. And the motor in the Sana Supreme 727 is a brushless DC motor. Most juicers just have a standard motor that's completely different. The advantages of this kind of motor, on the one side, they're much more expensive. They cost about 3 or 4 times more than a standard motor. But the benefits are, for one thing, they're a lot lighter. You've got a lot more power to the weight ratio. That means this juicer is actually pretty lightweight, even though it looks big and heavy. Also, brushless motors are much more durable. They're far less likely to fail. They have a very high torque ratio. That torque is the twisting power you need, especially for things like carrots and beets. The power consumption is much lower, about 80% lower than standard motors. So if you're going to be juicing a lot, maybe that'll add up a little bit. They're quieter. It'll run a little bit more quietly. It's also got a long operating cycle. Most juicers you can run, cheapest one's about 10 minutes. You have to shut them off. Good one's about 30 minutes. Theoretically, you could run this juicer nonstop, no problem. But really the biggest thing, and I think it's the feature that differentiates the Sana 727 from all other juicers, this motor lets you control the speed. It's the first variable speed juicer I've come across. There's actually a dial here on the front, and what this does, it's got 4 settings. You can see going from 0 to 4. Most juicers, slow juicers, run anywhere from about 43 RPM for the slowest verticals up to about 110 on the twin gears like the Angels. This has 4 settings. It's got 40, 65, 90, and 120 RPM. And what that does, the lower RPMs, theoretically, you could get a higher yield as things are pressed a little more slowly, a little more carefully. Slower speeds are also better for soft things. If you're juicing berries, peaches, things like that. Sometimes it's better because otherwise things can start backing up a bit from the pulp. So that slow speed just lets you regulate that. On the other side, you've got something like oranges, or maybe even carrots, or the oil extractor. You can run it at maximum speed and you get juice much faster than you would in other slow juicers. So that's the big features of the motor. What I also want to take a look at is the juicing assembly here. Sana's made some changes, some things I haven't seen before. First one is the way you remove it. There's a button here. Most juicers, there's a collar. You turn a collar to unlock it, then you turn this assembly and pull it out. This one, you push in a button and it slides right out. Let me take this out here. So you just line it up, and then putting it back in is just a one-handed operation. So it's really handy, real convenient to take the juicing assembly on and off. Let's take a look at some of the features. First of all, here's a dust cover. Never really seen that before. The hopper, this is a bit like Sana's newest vertical juicer. That's the 828. It's a dual hopper. It's got a single wide hole for things like celery, carrots, things like that. And then this one also has this deep tray. And what this does is let you feed in smaller things like cherry tomatoes, berries. If you've cut produce into smaller sizes, you can just fling them in there. You don't have to push them in. And I've actually found it's really good for leafy greens. Things like spinach, because normally you're trying to squeeze them into these little holes here. You can just dump a bunch into this bowl, kind of push it through, and then push it down with the auger. We'll see, I'll be juicing spinach in just a little bit. So that's one difference, is this hopper here. What I want to do is look at some of the others, like this right here. I've never seen this in a horizontal. You see these in verticals all the time. This is just a juice tap. What it does is block the juice from coming out. Now, this isn't something you would use in the same way as a vertical, where you could keep it closed and mix things together. You don't want to mix things in here because the juice will start coming up, and you don't want any chance of it going back through the gaskets in the motor. It's sealed, but still not something you want to do. Instead, what this is handy for is cleanup. Because I own a 707. There's a couple sitting behind me. And what I've noticed is when I'm done juicing and I go to clean it, it doesn't have this. So I've got to put my hand here, go over to the sink, and then release. Otherwise, I've got a little trail of juice going across the counter. With this, you just close it, head on over there, and clean it. And it also makes cleaning easier, because normally something like this, all you have to do is rinse it out. With my 707, I hold my hand under this while the water fills up. Here you wouldn't have to do that. You could just close it, let the water fill up. A couple of other things that are different that I want to show you. First of all, the juicing system is actually quite a bit different. It's the first technological leap I've seen in a while. There's this rotating blade. I don't know if you can see it there. I'll spin it there. And what this does, as the pulp is coming through, this blade is spinning, and it's giving that pulp, just before it ejects, one last squeeze. This is designed just to get the maximum extraction. Normally horizontals get the lowest extraction rate compared to verticals or twin gear. In my test, this one's actually pretty much matching up with verticals, or coming pretty close. This is one reason. Another thing that's a little different is this auger. Now, it's got this little tip here at the end. That's designed to spin that blade, but also the design of it, the fins here are wider spaced compared to other horizontal juicers. And what that means is it can take a wider piece of produce, like a fatter carrot, and kind of cut it itself as it turns. When these are narrower, they can only take smaller things. So theoretically, it'll be a little more flexible in terms of self-feeding. On the other hand, these wider fins can mean it's possible for some pulp to back up a bit, so we'll see how that goes. That's something that the juicing screen should take care of. And speaking of juicing screens, we've got 3 of them here. There's the standard fine screen, which is what you use for most produce, especially hard produce. There's a coarse screen, and this one actually has a little bit bigger holes on it. This is something you would use for softer things, berries, pineapple, things like that. The combination of these larger holes and the ability to go to a lower speed should make this juicer pretty good for things like berries, pineapple, things like that. One other difference I'd like to show is this juicer has a stainless steel wing screen. That's the back screen That's the last contact point before the juice goes into the glass. And in most juicers, that's a BPA-free plastic. This one is actually food-grade stainless steel, and it's just got a fine pattern to kind of balance between getting enough juice without letting the pulp in. So we'll see how that goes. Also, there is a blank screen. This is just one solid screen, and this is just going to crush things. This is what I'll use to make sorbet and peanut butter later. And this just turns the juicer almost into a food processor type of thing. Now, one thing Sana's known for is their accessories. Oh, there is a pusher, standard pusher. It's got a little hook on it, which is nice. You can just hang it there. And it does come with a brush. This is used to clean these screens here, just to make sure you get all the pulp out. Horizontals are always the easiest to clean because you've got the smallest screen area. But what I was saying was the accessories from Sana tend to be a step beyond. Most juicers come with a little plastic juicing bowl, maybe 500 milliliters. Some will go up to 800 or even 1 liter. And then usually a smaller plastic container to catch the pulp. Sana likes to kind of focus on form as well as function. They're pretty stylish juicers. You can tell just by looking at this with the design, the chrome strip. It's a nice looking machine. But they've kind of gone the extra mile here with their accessories. First of all, there's this glass. And this is an actual Bohemian crystal. These were custom made, and I actually visited the workshop where these were made. They're made up in the mountains in the Czech Republic near the border of Poland. And these, I watched it. These guys pull out the glass, they form it by hand, they shape each one by hand, and then the Sana logo, Sana Supreme, is sandblasted on there. It's really solid, it's very heavy. This holds about 600 milliliters, if I understand right. It fits perfectly under here. So the thinking here was you could juice directly into your glass, you're ready to go. From what we hear, most people tend to juice for themselves. If you do want to juice larger quantities, you could put a bigger, like a 1 liter Pyrex bowl under there. Sana also makes available a 1 liter custom plastic BPA-free container that fits there as well, that matches the design here, so that's available. Also, there's this, which is kind of cool. This is the pulp catcher. Again, fits perfectly here. And this is made from food-grade stainless steel. And why would you do that? Why would you make stainless steel for your pulp container? Well, we've heard, and from what Sana's told us, some people like to save their pulp. Some people feed it to their chickens or something. I've actually used it in muffins and dried in crackers. So if you want to keep your pulp in a hygienic fashion, you're able to do that. Also, another kind of cool thing, if you like the most pulp-free juice, there is this, let me pull these out here, custom-made stainless steel screen. This fits perfectly on there, so you can put this under here, and that will filter out any last bits of pulp if you really don't want any pulp in the juice. So those are all the features I wanted to talk about here. What I'd like to do next is just start pulling ingredients out and testing them. What I'll do is try ingredients, give you my feedback on how I juice, how I cut them up, things like that. And let's just see how it does. So I'll start with carrots. Carrots are kind of the standard thing we use to test juicers. And one thing about the 727 in the manual, there's a chart and it recommends the speeds for each produce. It's more of a guideline. They recommend speed 3 for carrots. I'll see how it goes. A higher speed will produce juice faster. Although carrots have so much pulp, a highest speed may start sending some of that pulp back. So we'll see how it goes. I'll just regulate it and see. One thing to remember, you want to open this up, the juice flap, so the juice doesn't start backing up there. And then at the end, I'll close it when I clean it. So one thing I noticed doing the carrots, I played around a little bit with the speed at the end. You notice the, didn't close it all the way. You notice at the end, I sped it up to the high speed to get the, all the last pulp shot through the juicing chamber basically. What I did was I ran it at speed 3. It's a pretty fast speed. That's 95 RPM. Most juicers horizontal run at about 60. And because of those wide fins, some of the pulp was backing up just a bit. I just pushed it through, and at the end I put it on full speed. It sucked it all through. So it did pretty well, went fast. I'm gonna clean it up and move on to the next ingredient. Next up, I'm gonna try oranges, and I'm gonna run it at full speed. Oranges have such a high juice content, I should be able to run it maximum, no problem. I'm also gonna use the fine screen, which will give the maximum juice output. So at high speed, that went real fast. Make sure this time to close the juice flap all the way. Yeah, there. I'll clean that up, move on to our next ingredient. Next up is leafy greens. I've got some spinach leaves here, and hopefully this will be enough. You know, spinach has a pretty low liquid content, so I may need to put a little more in. Horizontal juicers generally do pretty well on leafy greens. I juice a lot of spinach myself, mixed with apple and carrot. It's a good kind of bland way to get some good iron and vitamins into your juices. So I'm gonna run it again, probably speed 3. We'll see how it goes. I like being able to adjust it. If I see it's going a little too slow, I can speed it up. If I wanna kind of try to press it a little longer, I can slow it down. And one thing kind of nice about this dual hopper, horizontals, I always have trouble with spinach, trying to get them through this hole. I usually shove them together like in my 707 at home. This what I think I'll do is slide it in from the side because it's got this big deep bowl, and then push that down with the auger. And again, I'll run at speed 3 or 4 using the fine juicing screen. So what I did with that, I did have to add some baby spinach at the end just to get a full glass. Normally you wouldn't, well maybe some people would, but I wouldn't glass just pure, juice just pure spinach. That's pretty intense flavor. One thing I did notice is the quality of the ingredients do make a difference. That first big leaf spinach was a little older, a little slimier, wasn't juicing as well. The baby spinach was a lot fresher, juiced really well. You can also notice a couple of things. First of all, interesting shape of the pulp coming out here. These little tubes. It's fairly dry too for greens. Greens tend to stay pretty wet. I also adjusted the speed. I was running at speed 3, but because it was taking so long to feed spinach, spinach is just a kind of labor intensive, you know, to put it in here, shove it down. That's going to be the case with any juicer. I thought I'd slow it down to speed 2 and then even speed 1 to minimize foaming, because spinach does tend to foam. And you can see there is some foam here, I could have also put the sieve on. That would have eliminated the foam as well. But it did a pretty good yield. It was pretty fast. And again, it was nice to have that flexible speed to go slower while I'm feeding, and then at the end speed it up. Up next is pineapple. Pineapple can be tricky to juice, but more tricky in vertical juicers. Horizontal should be okay here. In vertical, pineapple and celery tend to get those long fibers stuck in the little tiny pulp outlets. This has a much bigger pulp outlet. But you know, I'm still going to switch out the screens. Instead of the fine screen, I'll do the coarse screen. Has slightly bigger holes. What that means is slightly better juice flow, but a little less pressure, so less backing up, and slightly less yield, but easier juicing. And I'll start it at speed 2, something a little slower, see how it goes, and I'll adjust it depending. Want to make sure to close that seal, not like I did with the carrots when I didn't close it all the way and it dripped a little. You can see with pineapple, especially softer pineapples, even with the coarse screen, it did back up some. There's still some pulp sitting in here. I could run it longer, or I could put it at high speed to kind of clear this through, but I went as far as I wanted to right now. And I found speed 2 was probably the best balance here, and every now and then I would put it on a speed 4 to kind of blast things through. Normally, I would mix something in with this. If you put a carrot or a piece of celery in there, that's going to clear this out. But pineapple is very fibrous, especially softer ones. They will kind of jam up a bit in there. Yet still, I got a full glass of juice out of these pineapple chunks. Let's take a look at it here. It did get a little foamy when I ran it at full speed. When I was running at the lower speed, it wasn't a problem. So celery juicing is kind of the big thing right now. We actually filmed a video of celery testing just the other day. It's the first video we filmed with the 727. And so I can tell you the results of that. This is actually my favorite juicer for juicing celery because it's fast, because you don't have to cut it up into little pieces like you have to with a vertical. It wasn't a problem. Running it at speed 4, it was super quick. And cleanup was really easy. So it should do fine on celery. I was also thinking when I was cleaning the pineapple just now, I noticed a lot of long fibers. That's why it was kind of backing up. You notice the pulp coming up there. Those long fibers wrap around the auger. I could have easily avoided that had I just chopped up those strips of pineapple into smaller pieces. I had them in longer, bigger pieces with longer fiber. So that would have solved that. Shouldn't be a problem with celery. Like I said, I've tested it before. Let's see how it goes. You can see why I thought this was my favorite juicer for celery. You can see it actually was self-feeding. It's pulling them in, those wider ribs there on the auger, give it enough space. So for most of these, especially these smaller bits of celery, it just pulled them right through. Running at full speed was super fast. And in that other test, I'm not doing yield tests today. This is more just a presentation of the juicer. But when I did test the yield, surprisingly, horizontals always have fairly significant less amount of juice compared to verticals. This actually beat our best vertical, just almost exactly the same. Got 580 milliliters versus 570, but that's pretty impressive for a horizontal. And again, like I said, they're super easy to clean up. No backup, no jamming. And because I ran at full speed, I got a slight amount of foam on the juice. I could have easily run at speed 3 or 2. Wouldn't have taken very much longer, but it was really fast to juice. Now I'm going to juice apples. We always recommend firm, juicy varieties, especially these, Granny Smith. Those are my favorite for juicing. They're also a little more tart, maybe not as sweet as you're used to, but they tend to hold up a little better. All apples are going to oxidize, they're going to foam, but these ones with a little high acid content, it'll be less. It's less likely to turn brown and foam up. And one tip you can do, if you've got a lemon, squeeze a little bit of lemon or lime into your apple juice. That'll keep it fresher longer. I also recommend cutting them when you're juicing because, again, apples will oxidize. They'll start turning brown. Best to have it at the freshest part. I'm going to run it at a lower speed. I'll start it at speed 2 using the fine screen. The speed 2 will minimize the oxidation, maybe even speed 1, and the foaming because, like I said, apples are really prone to foaming. I could also use that little metal sieve here if I wanted to keep any foam out. Looks like I'm just starting to overflow. That was, what, 4 apples? Yeah, 4 apple cores I've got here, so that was 4 apples. Let's see if I can get it out without scraping too much foam. I played around with the speed a little bit. I was at speed 2 most of the time. I tried it at speed 1. It seemed to reduce the foaming a bit, but I'm kind of impatient. I bumped it up to speed 3. It just sucked those apples right through. But again, I would have used the sieve, or I could always just scoop off the foam if it's something you don't like. Just dump it in here. But again, normally I use apples in a mix, like with carrots and spinach. But it did well. It was real fast, nice clear juice, and we got one more juice to go. So the last thing I'm going to juice before I bring out the homogenizing screen is watermelon. Watermelon should juice pretty easily in most any juicer because it's got such a high liquid content. That means I can run it at a fast speed with the fine screen. It should be no problems. I forgot to open the juice flap when I first started that. Again, if you'll see it start filling up and you can catch it, it's not going to be a problem. The main thing is to make sure to close it when you're done. So here's watermelon juice. That was really fast, easy, full speed. So what I want to do next is show you how to clean this juicer. Horizontals clean pretty easily. This is the easiest one I've found probably to clean, mainly because you can close this bottom piece here and because it's so easy to take apart here. So cleaning this up, it's pretty simple. First thing is take off the cap here, rinse it out. You can spin this little blade if you need to, but I've never had an issue with that. Then I pull the parts out, which is just the auger and the screen. Rinse the auger. Again, just a water rinse takes care of it. And then I save the screen for last. I wash out the hopper, rinse it. As long as you keep this thing closed here on the bottom, you can just fill it up with water. I'll cover the end here so it'll kind of fill up the tube. Let the water out, and that's all done. And finally, the only thing you have to actually scrub is the screen. That's why horizontals are the easiest because they have the smallest screen. The back screen, you probably don't even need to clean it. It's usually pretty clean. It's just this front screen here. All you do is, under running water, just rotate it in your hand with the cleaning brush that comes with the juicer. Then go inside as well. A couple of rotations and it's done. And you just need to dry out the juicer and it's ready to go. Oh, and I guess you can rinse off the auger too. And that's it. So now I'm going to make a couple of things with the blank screen, also called the homogenizing screen. This is just a big solid BPA-free screen, I guess. And what it will do is just put any ingredients into there. The auger will pull them in, crush them, and it'll go out through that pulp outlet. And you can do all sorts of things like baby food. You can process things. I'm going to make sorbet using frozen bananas, frozen raspberries I've got here. You can mix up all sorts of things, but banana's a really good base for it. Avocado makes a good base too. With mint and some sort of sweetener, you can make some pretty cool things. Make sure the juice flap's closed. I'll start it at speed 2, we'll see. And you just want to alternate the ingredients. Put in some banana, then put in some berries. And it's really handy, this tray here. You can just throw the berries on the side there. Notice how it comes out in these sort of cool strings. You might like it just that way. You could also, like I said, stir it together and make sort of a swirled ice cream. It's up to you. But I kind of like the way it comes out like this. It's really good with blueberries as well, and it just makes a good consistency. You can see here it's a really ice creamy consistency. Just make sure to eat it fast or put it in the freezer because it will melt fairly quickly. So I'll clean that up and then move on. Try to make some nut butter with some peanuts. Another thing you can do with a horizontal juicer is make nut butters from peanuts, almonds, cashews, even sunflower. I've been making sunflower butter lately for my daughter because she's allergic to nuts. And sunflower seed butter is non-allergy causing. To make peanut butter is pretty simple. All you want to do is get some peanuts. You need to get roasted peanuts and salted depending on how much you like salt. Sometimes the ones we buy have too much salt and you end up with way too salty peanut butter. And unlike a blender, where a blender will create heat and make kind of a sticky peanut butter and make the oils naturally, this is using a cold press method, so you need to add oil to it. A few spoons, a few tablespoons. Just depends how oily you like your peanut butter. You can also run it through the machine multiple times, but that does make it messier to clean up. If you only run it through once, it's a lot easier to clean. So I generally add a little more oil, run it through the machine once, and then stir up what I've got. So I've put in, I don't know how much that was, a few spoons worth of oil. Mix it up, and then I'll just ladle this into the nice big feeding tray here. I'm not sure what speed to run at. Again, make sure the juice flap's closed. Make sure you're using the blank screen. I'll start it around speed 2, see what happens. You don't want to overfeed it, but it should handle it fine. I'll just run a little slowly to get the last of it out. But you can see the texture of this, if I squeeze it together, it's quite soft, very peanut buttery, I guess you'd say. And like I said, I could run it through a second time, but I think this consistency is just fine. What I'll do is just stir it together. It's getting the last bit of the oilier part out. There we go. You can also add more oil if you want a more liquid consistency. But I think this is quite a good consistency here. Might even be able to speed this up. Yeah. Just getting the last of the oil there. This actually worked out quite nice. And that's peanut butter. So now I'm gonna, yeah, I do have an oil extractor sitting over there, so I'm gonna clean this up. It's a little trickier to clean up peanut butter or nut butters just because of the oil. All you have to do is run it under hot water. And then, yeah, let's hook up the oil extractor and try to make some flaxseed oil, and then I'll give some concluding thoughts. Finally, I'm gonna press some oil from flax seeds with the Sana oil extractor. This is an optional accessory. It works with all Sana horizontal juicers. Basically, it just uses the motor's own torque to drive a stainless steel auger. It's all stainless steel in there. And the advantage I found with this, because I have tested it with the oil extractor, is that it worked great at the highest speed. Most of the time when I'm making oil at home with my 707, which is running at 60 RPM, it comes out in a nice steady drip, kind of drip, drip, drip. And I've noticed with this, if you have good quality seeds with a high oil content, we'll see with this, I'm not sure, it'll actually come out in more of a steady stream, and it's a lot faster. So fire it up. Usually takes a few, I don't know, 30 seconds for the oil to start coming because it's got to heat up with the friction, but once it heats up, it should start going pretty well. So I went through, I don't know, half a bag, a pretty big bag of flax seeds. And these were flax seeds I bought this morning in just the local big box discount store. And these are pretty low quality seeds. Normally I'd get more oil out of them. The juicer is not going to be the factor in making the oil. It's the quality of the seeds themselves. This one, even though this is a bit of a flake, you can see it's kind of soft. You can actually see the seeds still in there. Good quality seeds will fully press and they'll have a higher oil content, and you get actual like big thick chips almost that you can eat that are a bit crunchy. This I can still see seeds and seed shells. But still, it did well. Again, the big advantage of this Sana 727 is the speed. This runs twice as fast as all the other juicers, so you get the oil twice as fast. There's no backing up. Worked really well. So I'm going to clean things up here and then just wrap up with some concluding thoughts. So that'll wrap up this introductory video, just kind of showing what the Sana 727 is all about and what it can do. You can see we made a lot of juices here: carrot, orange, spinach, pineapple, celery, apple, watermelon, and flaxseed oil. There's also that peanut butter sitting in the back room. So what did I think of it? You know, I've been using this for a couple of days. I actually like it quite a bit. I think it does reach that ultimate juicer claim they say. It's the yield, while I didn't test the yield today, I have tested yield with some other things, and it does yield quite high, comparable to a vertical, which is pretty rare for a horizontal. Super easy to use, really easy to clean. And all these little details, you know, I really like this little spinning blade at the end that's just getting that last little squeeze of juice is nice. This flap here is really handy to go clean the juicer. This feeding tray is nice to have this wide opening for me, especially for leafy greens. But I think the real feature on this machine would be that motor inside, that unlimited, you know, usage time. Just run it nonstop if you want, and especially the variable speed. With the celery, man, it made a difference. Juice celery just as fast as you can in a centrifugal, but with the nice cold press results. So that will wrap up a first look at the Sana 727. Hope you liked this video. Please leave any comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. I'm Dan with eujuicers.com.